We're going to bring up our next presenter, who is a personal friend of mine, who travels a lot, but I think in her travels, it's more of a job. Every time she tells me she's somewhere, I'm constantly thinking she's on vacation. And she reminds me that she's not on vacation, she's working. So anyway, our next presenter, Meredith Blumthal. Thank you.
20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did. So throw up the bow line, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, dream, discover. I spend every day trying to convince University of Illinois students that this is a good idea. I've spent the last 4 years traveling with groups of Illinois students to Western Europe, to China, Latin America. And last year, I landed my dream job as the Director of Education Abroad in the College of Aces. So I still spend my days trying to convince these young people that there's a great big world out there, and they really need to get out and see it. Some people tell me I have the best job on campus. Well, I know I wear a lot of hats: administrator, advisor, teacher, traveler, but always a food lover. And I don't really know when my love of food began. It just has always been there. But I do know exactly when my love of travel began. And I was on my way to the Netherlands for my own study abroad. I was pretty much scared shitless, and I hoped that Megan, who was sitting next to me on the airplane, knew something about how to get from Amsterdam to Wageningen by train, and she did. And I knew something more about food, and she would later tell me that had she never met me, she wouldn't have tried so many different things. The Netherlands is where my travel began, but their cuisine is something lacking. Don't get me wrong, I love Dutch cheese and this wonderful thing they call vla, which is pudding but better. But they have a lot of terrible snack foods that you eat as a student. This is something called frikandella, which really is best eaten after a heavy night of drinking. And I don't know why it is that Belgium, who's just south of the Netherlands, came up with such wonderful things like Belgian waffles and French fries as street foods, and there's not enough time to even talk about the beer in Belgium. But I do have a specific weakness when it comes to markets and street foods. In markets, I have this weakness. I want to sample everything that's possible, and in Europe, they really are kind and let you sample the cheeses and things like that before you buy. Or it's just, trying different street foods, which is what I preach to my students never to do, is to try street foods. But I want to try them myself. And I can't talk about Europe without talking about Italy, and especially about Venice, which is where my husband and I were married. And Venice has a really bad reputation for stinking and having bad food, neither of which I believe are true, especially if you use this book as your guide. And basically, if you just eat anything in Italy, you'll be happy. So it's just not Europe that has great food. I continually find myself landing in Latin America, and that's working out great for me because I speak just enough Spanish to be dangerous, and of course, I like the food a lot. And people ask me all the time, what's your favorite country? And to me, that's like asking me which sister is my favorite, and I have 3. But I did fall head over heels for Guatemala. The food is absolutely delicious and simple. The people are friendly and colorful, and it always is 70 degrees and sunny when I'm there. But honestly, I do love the food. Breakfast in Guatemala is hard to beat. This is one of my favorite foods: black beans and fried sweet plantains, also known as plátanos fritos and plátanos maduros, depending on where you eat it. And I love this food so much it gets 2 slides, because I experience really strong emotions when I eat this food. I don't know if it's because I discovered them when I lived in Ecuador and I had no hot water, and every night I was like a mental war with the giant cockroaches on my walls, that these are the simple things in life that you appreciate it. And I really just don't feel like I'm in Latin America until I've had my first taste. But I also love the other iconic food of rice and beans. No surprise here. The Guatemalan ones are my favorite, but I also love Costa Rica's gallo pinto, and I was just in Brazil and had feijoada like 5 times and learned that Wednesday is supposedly the National Feijoada Day, which is But they also love buffets in Brazil, and honestly, I have some bad history with buffets. In Egypt, it led to me throwing up for 7 hours on the hour. So not so many problems in Brazil. And now finally to China. I didn't get sick here. And honestly, my whole experience in China personally was I was a skeptic, but seeing was believing for me. And 3 times visiting China in a year and a half was fantastic. I already love Chinese food, and yes, food is better in China. It's not that it's just better, it's just more interesting. Lots more things to sample, dumplings, the Lazy Susan is a must. It's sort of like a buffet on your table, so I was nervous. Because also not having enough food is an insult to your guest. But my most memorable food experience yet was this turtle. And yes, I did eat it, because why not? I was in China. How do you eat this turtle? Well, they give you a plastic glove, and you flip him over, and you dig in. And I had a group of students with me, so I hope you by now understand that food is really important to me, and I think it's important to you all as well. And when you're traveling, it can either be a catastrophe or it can really be rewarding, but you have to sort of break down your cultural norms. And I see this all the time when students return from the study abroad program, which is on food and agriculture in France. The American students fall in love with France and 5-hour meals and multiple courses, and the French students come here sort of disappointed in our lack of food culture. But food's still the common denominator. And then sometimes in my life, everything works out just perfectly, as it did in Brazil, where at a Brazilian churrascaria, the big barbecues, these guys, my 3 amigos, shared with me their new Brazilian culture and the rules of engagement in eating, because there are intense rules at a churrascaria. But it was the culmination of my work and my love of food, and I do think I have the best job on campus. Thank you.